I've never tried doing this with my phone, using it as a mic, but I realized it might be a good idea. So why not try? And this way I don't have to scream to the camera when I'm in public. And I think it feels more comfortable this way. I just hope that it actually works. The past 5 days, I think, I've just not been recording videos of myself. I still don't know what to call them. I want to call them podcasts. The initial idea behind this channel was a podcast, but to be honest, I don't know if I still see it as a podcast, because it does feel like video journals, which is a little bit of a less formal term, but I like using that one because I do approach these videos as if I'm journaling or, writing my thoughts, because I'm just literally saying my thoughts. But when I first, started doing this every day, that was a month ago, or a little over a month ago. And I was doing it every day for a month. And you know what? That is a great method. When you want to start something, especially on the internet, I have found that being consistent for at least 1 month, it does something. The algorithm finds you some kind of audience, a small following, something works out, because this is the second time that this happens to me. The first time this happened was through Medium, which is a website for I would say articles, blogs. So when I gained a following on Medium, that was only when I was posting every day for a month. I think I started gaining a following after 20 days, but at some point I realized that I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Doing it every day is not realistic. It works to get you the following at the start, and I think it's a good idea to do it at the start, but obviously it's not realistic to keep doing it for longer than a month, or I don't know, maybe 2 months maximum. I just started not knowing how to speak. There was this one day where I had so many ideas, and I was so excited to record that I literally went to a place to record, and then I just couldn't do it. I kept trying and trying and trying over and over again, and I remember I spent the whole day trying to record. I took 100 takes, and it just wasn't working. Every time I record, I just wouldn't know how to speak. I would mess up my words, and it just wasn't working. And I had already made 2 videos talking about feeling stuck with your, creative endeavor. When you no longer are able to feel creative, or you just don't come up with ideas, which tends to happen. And I had already made 2 videos about that because I was going through it. And so I kind of made the conscious decision of stepping aside. I had to take my own advice, which I was giving in those videos, which is taking a break sometimes is really good. And a friend of mine made a comment on one of my videos. She said, how do you separate taking a break from procrastinating? Because you can take a break and end up pushing that thing away so much to the point where you just don't come back to it, or you fall into a rut of just not really being able to get yourself to do anything. A break can easily turn into something like that. But when I say a break, I kind of mean not necessarily taking a break of completely not doing anything, which is sometimes good, but in this scenario, when I say taking a break, I kind of mean focusing on different things and not really thinking about that thing that you're stuck on. Just not thinking about it at all. The past 5 days, 5 days is not that long, but the past 5 days, I literally haven't been even thinking about this whole podcast thing at all. At some point, I was so obsessed with looking at my like YouTube studio or whatever. I was like constantly checking and seeing the numbers go up, which is always satisfying. But for those past 5 days, I just haven't even been looking at it. Just tried to completely get my mind off of it. I forgot that I even have a YouTube channel. And at some point, I had this idea of making videos, interviewing people, and posting it on my channel. And I'll get more in depth about this whole thing that's going on in my mind that is related to this, and I'll try to make it make sense. But basically, I did do an interview with a really cool guy, and I edited the video and I had to like teach myself how to edit, which is, I've always kind of, had a small idea of how to edit, but I hated it. It was so much work. I never really knew how to edit, but recently I've been doing more research on how to edit, and so I let myself be distracted with something still creative, but so different than what I was initially doing with this channel. So that was a really helpful thing. So coming up with something to do so different than your thing can be helpful. I had to really reflect. I had to really sit with myself and reflect about a couple of things. And it made me realize that something that I've only recently, like this past year, that's been really taking up my mind is like this journey of self-discovery. And I've only recently really become, how do I say it? I've really embraced this whole process, or this whole concept of not really knowing who you are and not necessarily having to know who you are. So I'm embracing my identity crisis, and I think being 21 makes it feel more okay to feel super confused about your identity. And I know that it doesn't really matter what age you're at to be confused with your identity. You can be 50 and still confused, and that's okay. But you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the whole YouTube channel? And that's because I have this problem of where I post things online, whether it's YouTube or Instagram. But I'm going to use the example of Instagram because honestly YouTube is so new, but with Instagram I've always had it pretty much. Let's say you always, post whatever. I have this problem where at some point I look at my Instagram and I'm like, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I hate every single one of my posts. And so what I end up doing is either deleting a bunch and completely changing the aesthetic of my Instagram profile, or whatever you want to call it. And it kind of made me think about everything related to social media and how it ties to our identity. I wrote a small poem. I finished this whole journal. in a month. I got less than a month. I got this in 25 June. It's a pretty thin journal, but I got it in 25 June. We're in 14 July. And it's done, unfortunately. Let me try to find this poem that I wrote. I'm not gonna read the whole poem. Not gonna read the whole poem, just part of it, if I can find it. Right, I found it. Here it is. It feels like we've become much more concerned with how we appear to other people than how we appear to ourselves, to the point where we've lost ourselves in this game we didn't even know we were playing, or when we started playing it, or who even started it. We just found ourselves participating in it. Authenticity has become lost, or unknown even. I no longer know how to recognize it. Everything is for an ad nowadays. It's scary to think about how difficult I find it to put my phone down. Maybe I'm overthinking it, maybe not. I hope I find myself again. I hope I continue to allow myself to appreciate the very small things and write about them. About my grandmother's kibbeh, my favorite coffee shop, my daily interactions with cab drivers in Lebanon, walking very unwalkable streets in Lebanon, being sore from running, getting my first wisdom tooth removed, phone calls with my dad, the feeling of anxiety of moving abroad for the very first time ever, writing an essay for school, complaining about school, how much I love it all, and I'll continue to love it all, the good and the bad. There's so much beauty in it all. Yeah, I've just been thinking about that a lot lately, how much social media has turned into this game where it's kind of like a competition, who has a cooler aesthetic, who has a cooler profile, who has a cooler thing going on. And I even wrote another, this isn't really a poem, this is just thoughts, which I'm going to read right now. The thing about the internet is that we get to choose who we want to be. It allows us to create a personality, my handwriting, an aesthetic, a way of being perceived by others without ever having to meet them. And another thing is that when we do choose the aesthetic that we want, we try our best to be consistent with it because we want to be perceived in just one way. We want to look like we have our lives figured out and we know exactly who we are. There's a sense of satisfaction in having a certain aesthetic or style that you stick with. And I'll try to explain what I mean by that. It's easier to I don't know if I should use the example of style. Let's say you have a very distinctive fashion style. It's so easy for you. You wake up every day, you know exactly what you're gonna wear because you have your style figured out, you know? Or when you go shopping, you know exactly what to look for because you have your style figured out. So every day you're dressing up pretty much, in the same style, so there's not much thinking that goes behind it. And it's the same with like social media. When you have your aesthetic figured out, you don't really think much about what you're posting, because it's like you've been consistent with it for so long that like every time you post, it's pretty much, the same way of posting as before, And the longer you go on with this, the more easy it is for other people to recognize you in a certain way or categorize you to a certain personality that they perceive you in. And I feel like we craved, we want that kind of, we want that, basically. I don't know why I said crave. I say all this because I've been through it. I've been through, like, deleting everything on social media and like, restarting. Or not really restarting, but, like, trying to figure out a new aesthetic every time I go through, like, a huge turning point in my life or something. But something that I recently took note of is that that doesn't really work. I feel like when we try to run away from this person that we used to be because we're so embarrassed of them, we're like, there's no way I used to post that. There's no way I used to dress like that. I'm gonna delete it all and pretend like it never happened and start a new personality, a new style, a new aesthetic. And whoever meets me now is gonna meet this new identity that I've created for myself, and so they're gonna like me more. I'm way cooler now, and I don't want people to know that I was ever not cool. And when we do that, we think that we're gonna become happier because people are gonna give us like more attention, more positive attention, and we think that like because we've kind of erased or deleted this person that we once were, that we're gonna feel a lot better now, But I don't think it works that way. I don't think that us running away from this person that we once were gives us the joy that we're looking for in life. And I have found that trying to embrace the person that we once were and trying to find like some kind of pride that we were once super flawed and that we still are flawed is more like fulfilling than being embarrassed by the person we were. And the thing is, even though we think that us now in the present moment are cool and we have it figured out, one day we might look back and think that was very uncool. And so the truth is that no matter where you are in life, you might not seem cool to your future self. And so then it's a problem of like you accepting yourself. And I feel like once you embrace the fact that you need to go on this journey of learning to accept yourself, once you become aware that this is a problem of you, this is an internal problem, that's when you start moving in the right direction. Because it's all a journey about you fully accepting yourself with all your flaws. And to be honest, I don't know what that means. I don't know what self-acceptance means because I don't think I fully have that yet. I don't think a lot of people have it. I don't think you'll ever, have it figured out, have your whole identity figured out. I think there's always going to be some question marks. And I think it's okay. And to be honest, sometimes I question, like whenever I have this like huge like philosophical questioning in my mind of who I am, I realize that I genuinely do, like, I am concerned with how other people perceive me, and I have always been concerned with it. And to the point where a lot of the time I do seek validation from other people, to the point where I don't even realize it. A lot of the things I do are hardly ever for myself. And it's so easy to live a life where you're constantly seeking validation from other people. And I think me being aware of it, first of all, is a bit concerning, because I don't know how I'll ever do things truly for myself. In the age of technology, it's so hard to know how to recognize when we do things for ourselves. I've found that hanging out with myself helps. I've been doing that a little bit too much lately. I think I'm going a little bit insane. But hanging out with yourself helps a lot. But also detaching yourself from people who you grew up with, or your comfort people, like family or very close friends. I think detaching yourself from people who know you very well can be helpful, but not with the intention of erasing that person that you are with them, but with the intention of knowing that you are a certain way, but also trying to see who you are without their constant presence in your life. I'm gonna give a small example. Lately, I realized that there's so many things that I do or don't do because I was raised a certain way, or because, my family has affected me, and so to make me be a certain way. So, like, I don't smoke, for example. I don't smoke anything, not... And so lately I've had this craving for smoking a cigarette, even though I once tried it and I hated it. But even though I know I hate it, and even though I know it's not good for my health, and this is such a terrible example, please don't do this, but lately I've been thinking the reason why I never smoke cigarettes is because my family does it. Like, my parents don't, and they're so against it. And even me, when I do want to smoke a cigarette, it has to be like with a friend who has cigarettes or whatever. I would never walk in and buy a pack of cigarettes. But something about walking into a store and buying a pack of cigarettes and a lighter on my own makes me feel like that is a true detachment from family and all that. Not in a negative way, not in a, oh, I hate you all, I'm gonna rebel against everything you ever told me not to do, but in a way of like, I can be my own person. I'm allowed to be my own person and make my own decisions. Again, terrible example. There's a million other examples, but this is the only one I could come up with because it's really been on my mind lately. It doesn't always have to be an act of rebellion, obviously. It can be so many things. It can be starting a YouTube channel. It can be trying out a hobby that you've always kind of wanted to try, or maybe a hobby that you never thought of trying, that you recently stumbled upon. You're like, oh my god, why have I never thought of doing acting? Or, oh my god, why have I never thought about what's it called, painting, or sorry, I'm really bad with vocabulary. I'm thinking of something, I just forgot the word. But yeah, there's so much out there. And even when you do think about these hobbies, go and do them by yourself. I think, I don't know what it is, but something about doing things by yourself really, really helps you find yourself, and I don't think people do that often enough. I once went to the movies by myself voluntarily, not by accident because my friends couldn't show up or something. No, I decided today I'm gonna go to the movies by myself. And I remember going, and there was no one in the movies. And it was kind of scary because I'm like low-key claustrophobic. There was like 2 other people that came later, but it was a weird feeling of like, holy shit, I'm actually at the movies by myself. I have nobody to look at and laugh to, or whisper or whatever. It's just me. And it feels scary, but I think that's the best part. I think if you're scared, then you're doing it right. I think you have to feel a little bit scared. When it goes back to the topic of social media and why I even am thinking about all this, is because lately I've been looking at my YouTube channel and trying to think about how I want myself to be perceived as. At first, I had no following, and so I was just posting random videos because I was like, if I post enough videos, I'm gonna get a following. And so I was like posting the most random shit. I was in my bedroom posting, like talking and recording myself and then posting it. But now I'm like, oh, I have more than 3 subscribers. It's more than just my best friends that I sent my YouTube channel link to. So I need to have some sort of branding identity or something. I need to have my aesthetic figured out because I don't know what my aesthetic is, And so I'm realizing that, why do we think this way? Why do we think we need to have an aesthetic? We find pleasure in being occupied with something like this. And I think that goes for social media in general. Like, you have this instant gratification of like, oh my god, this profile picture looks so cute. And obviously with the likes and the attention you get from other people. But I think... Okay, hold on. I wrote something here. I have notes on my laptop, but this might sound a little bit harsh, but I think when we work on a aesthetic, it's a way of coping, because it's a way of making ourselves look cooler than we think we are. So I feel like it all goes back to the concept of self-acceptance and loving yourself. So because we don't love ourselves enough, we're like, oh my god, this is my chance to make myself look a certain way, a way that I always dreamed of being. So I'm gonna use all my energy to work on this aesthetic, that I can't achieve in real life. And so I said it's a way of customizing who we truly are into becoming who we wish to be. Unfortunately, the extreme side of this turns into depression. It starts to affect our mental health so much, because when you become so sucked into it, you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. And you're like, oh my god, this person has a way cooler aesthetic than me. Why couldn't I think of that? Or, whatever that it may be, whatever thoughts you have, and in the form of comparison, which is always a bad thing, to be honest. Never a good thing. Comparing yourself really, really affects our mental health. And it's so common And it's so prone to happen through social media. And I feel like it's become so hard for us to even acknowledge that this is a problem, to the point where we're literally in denial. Like, if you bring up the topic, we want to make jokes about it. We're like, yeah, this is so bad for my mental health, but I love it. I could never delete TikTok. I could never delete Instagram. It's kind of like telling a person who's addicted to cigarettes, for example, to put down their pack of cigarettes, and they're like, oh, come on, like, it's not the worst thing in the world, like, come on, like, it's just another form of addiction, just like any other addiction to substances or whatever. It's all the same. But I think because everybody's on their phone nowadays, we don't see it as a big problem, because we're like, oh, everybody's doing it, so this isn't even a problem. But I think we live in a dystopia, to be honest, and I think we're so distracted that we don't even want to, talk about it. We don't even want to talk about the fact that it's a problem. I truly admire people who don't have phones, or people who don't have social media. I haven't met that many of them, only a few, but when I see them, I'm like, oh, it is possible. I recently deleted Instagram, and it hasn't even been 24 hours yet, but I hope I make it. I hope I can last more than 24 hours. I've tried to delete it before. I didn't last more than 2 hours. So it's been a whole night, and hopefully I can keep going. But I think making the conscious decision of stepping away from something like this, like purposefully choosing to turn off our phones just to take a break from it for an hour or two, or intentionally deleting social media just for however long we need, it can be really healthy for us, I think. Just perceive it as, or approach it as a challenge. Challenge yourself. Be like, I'm going to choose to turn off my phone and put it in a drawer and not think about it for a while. I even have been trying to do this with music, because I'm so attached to constantly be listening to music, that sometimes I intentionally just choose to not wear my headphones, even if I'm going for a walk and I'm it's boring without music. Just knowing that I'm able to have control over these decisions is honestly a good thing. So becoming less attached to these superficial things should be something that we try to practice more often. I do feel like I've always been kind of searching for my online personality, or my online identity, as if that's such an important thing, as if it's almost more important than my own identity. Having something online to be perceived as. But I think we try to find a way to, sometimes we want to find a way to be perceived online in the way that we actually are in real life. But it's we become so obsessed with trying to search for that thing online, that to the point where we lose ourselves. So it doesn't even make sense. It's like how are you gonna try to figure out your online personality if you haven't even figured yourself out first, you know? Because it feels like that is more important. The digital part of it is more important than like who we are in real life. I kind of want to talk about the concept of like copying from other creators. And I've only become more concerned with this now that I've started a YouTube channel. There's a very thin line between taking inspiration from something and straight up copying it. So I try to take inspiration because I know that copying through this, specifically through YouTube, it can be a very subtle way of straight up plagiarism. I think when you copy a certain style of a certain YouTuber or content creator and you do the same style, but it's you doing it, it's the equivalent of plagiarism. Straight up, like, you know, using something from another source without citing it. And that's become very common. And I think this also ties back to the whole thing of identity. When you don't know who you are, it's so easy to copy the way that somebody else is doing it, and you kind of find comfort in doing that because you're like, oh, this person has already done all the work. They have their whole personality figured out. They've been through it all, so they've figured out their online aesthetic. They're authentic. They're themselves. That's why they're so popular. I'm gonna do the same thing in hopes of finding that same level of popularity. And we see this happen so often. I can already think of like examples. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't look for inspiration in other people. But it's so easy for me to go like, oh my god, I have no idea how I want my YouTube channel to look. I'm gonna go to other YouTube channels and try to see how they're doing it. Even though this is good to a certain extent, because I'm like, how are other people doing it? This is like, I'm taking inspiration within this industry, because this, you have to treat this kind of like a business, right? You want to take inspiration from people within the same industry, but then it's like, you don't want to copy them because they have it figured out. And there's like a thin line between the two. So I try to be aware of this. And again, I don't think this is easy at all. I don't think, you know, finding one specific, like very specific aesthetic and sticking to it is easy. And I don't think sticking to it is even a realistic thing. Because even when we think about like big content creators, they went through many like, you know, how would I describe it? Transitional periods with their aesthetic. One of my biggest inspirations is Emma Chamberlain. And she's constantly changing her style of, you know, filming. So it is a normal thing, and I think once we accept the fact that this is okay, then we're gonna feel a lot better. We're gonna feel a lot happier. We're gonna feel like, yep, I don't have my personality figured out. That's fine. And like I said, I don't think that we should like delete our previous selves every time we find a new aesthetic. When you look at Emma Chamberlain, for example, I'm gonna use her here. I've been a fangirl for years. But basically, She's changed styles of filming many, many times, but she never gets rid of any of it. And even though it's hard, like, even though when I look back at, like, old pictures of myself and stuff and I cringe, like, when I tell you I cringe, I, like, really, really cringe. So even if it's hard, I think we need to, like, really, really embrace it. I think we need to be like, fuck it. Yup, that was me. Still the same person. I'm the same person, but I find that cringe, and that's okay. So I think that helps. That helps a lot. So I'm okay with having cringe YouTube videos out there. I might hate them a lot in the future, but I needed to go through that to become who I am now. And so why would I ever be ashamed of that person? You know what I mean? I needed to go through it. I really did. That's the reality of things in life. You don't just learn things like this. It's not like an instant miracle that happens. You need to go through shit to learn, obviously. So yeah, I think my whole point behind this is to truly say that we need to accept the fact that we might not have our shit figured out. We might not have our personality figured out or anything figured out. I think we need to be more okay with it. But another point I want to mention here is, how do we, like, find our identity? Like, what are the things that we can do to find our identity, right? I feel like that's a big question. And I feel like for me, I've been thinking about this lately, and I realize that one big thing is when you, like, find something that you like, whatever that is, that relates to your identity. We have, like, preferences for things, and I don't think there's a way to explain why we have those preferences. I think they're, like, instinctive. You know, it's like a gut feeling. Like, sometimes I walk into a coffee shop and I'm like, this is a really cool coffee shop. So it's like, why do I have that instant feeling of, like, or like, you know, this thing inside me that tells me, yeah, I really like this place. We have this, like, natural preferences, and I feel like when we try to identify those preferences, we are working towards knowing ourselves better. So yeah, I come to this coffee shop here in Lebanon all the time. It's literally my favorite at this point. And you know, when I ask myself, why do I really like this coffee shop? And I realize it's because I love the architecture of it. I love the aesthetic. Again, we're using that word. I love the interior. I love, you know, the theme that they have. And so I feel like truly once we identify those things, we get to know ourselves better. And again, we can mess up with our online aesthetic over and over again, and I think that's only natural. And I think I find comfort in knowing that I'm allowed to mess up my online aesthetic, but as long as I am working towards, you know, finding myself in this real life, not the digital life, I'm, you know, relieved. I'm more okay with knowing that I'm working towards finding myself rather than being so concerned and obsessed over my online aesthetic. I think that's all I want to say, to be honest. I've always been somebody who tries so hard to please other people, and I feel like when I was doing the podcasts every single day, or video journals every single day for a month, at some point I reached a point where I knew I was, you know, like, I knew I had somewhat of a following, and so I was trying to have this neutral personality. I was trying to be a person who can't be criticized, because I was so afraid that I was going to start receiving hate. And so I feel like I had to take a second to step away, because that's such a wrong way of thinking. We're always going to be criticized. We're never going to, there's no such thing as a perfect human being. You can never satisfy all people. Like, there's always going to be people who dislike you for some reason, or dislike something that you do. And that's another thing. If there's always going to be people who dislike you or have something to criticize you for, then why should we ever try to please everyone at the same time if that's not even a possible or realistic thing? So at that point, just work on yourself, do your thing, be who you want to be. You know, it's a process of trial and error. Try things, they don't work out, try something else. You know, one day I have a certain style because I'm trying it out. I realize it's not working out. The next day I try a different style until I figure it out. And I'm doing it for myself, because if I'm going to do it for other people, then they're never going to be happy. So why would I constantly be trying to do it for other people if I'm never really going to satisfy all of them? So I feel like you have to let go of this thought that, like, I need to satisfy all the people, because it's so draining and it makes us so miserable. I had to learn this the hard way. I think I'm still learning it. Like, it's so rooted in my subconscious that I have to, like, you know, be aware of it. Like, I have to sometimes I do it without noticing, in the way that I speak or the way that I dress, whatever. And so I have to remind myself, I'm like, Jana, why are you doing this, girl? So a big thing with identity is trying to question our intention behind things, whether it's what you post online or how you appear to other people. Try to question your intention. Who are you doing it for? You know what I mean? When I started this YouTube channel, I knew what my intention was, but it slowly started getting lost when I became obsessed with the numbers. So, knowing your intention behind things. Why am I posting this? Why am I wearing this? Who am I trying to impress? You know? Again, I think it's hard. I don't think it'll ever be easy. I don't know that we ever are able to do things for ourselves 100%. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. But I think having awareness is what matters most. And constantly embracing, you know, that this is a process, this is a journey, and this is going to take time, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say, to be honest. I don't know what else I want to say. I think I covered all my talking points for today. If you made it this far, thank you. And yeah, goodbye.